Did Micah Parsons blast his head coach after their latest loss to the Eagles, or was he trying to say something else that we're missing here? I'll discuss it next here on The Gray Area. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to The Gray Area. I'm your host, Kevin Gray. Appreciate you joining me here on Kevin Gray Sports on YouTube. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to the channel here if you would. You can also catch me on DLLS Sports 5 times a week covering the Dallas Mavericks and occasionally talking about the Cowboys as well. You can find me on X at Kevin Gray Sports. You can't find very many Cowboys fans right now after the Cowboys got their ass whooped on Sunday by the Philadelphia Eagles 34-6 for their fourth straight loss in what is turning into a season from hell for the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas losing by 28 points, falling to 3-6 on the year. Still have not won a game inside AT&T Stadium this year. In fact, haven't won a game at all. Of course, we know what happened in the playoff game to the Green Bay Packers, and they haven't been able to find themselves since. It's been probably the darkest 11 months in quite some time in franchise history when you think about not just the loss from the Packers playoff game, but all the way to finding out this weekend, the past one that is, that Dak Prescott's going to need season-ending surgery on his torn hamstring, which means he will not be on the field for the remainder of the 2024 season. And then you watch Kellen Moore dance on your grave, much like how Dan Campbell and his Detroit Lions did a few weeks ago, and put the nail in the coffin on what has been a disastrous season from the Cowboys. And much of that to blame, of course, from its owner, president, and general manager in Jerry Jones, who tried to take some kind of accountability about the mess that he created and the way that his football team looks as a result of his ineffectiveness as the GM of this football team, a team that played inspired football, at least in the first half, on the defensive side. Micah Parsons, returning from an ankle sprain that caused him to miss the last several weeks, was pretty effective in the first half, had a couple of sacks. DeMarvion Overshown had a couple of sacks as well. In fact, the Cowboys had 5 in total, including 2 forced turnovers, but they couldn't sustain it, of course, in the second half, where the Philadelphia Eagles took control and were able to win the football game. Not to mention the fact that your offense is as pathetic as it can be with Cooper Rush and Trey Lance trying to run the offense. Even though Rico Dowdle was able to give you something at the running back position, this offense couldn't generate any offense worth sustaining over the course of the football game. And now the Cowboys sit here at 3-6, looking for answers, desperately trying to find some as they move toward a season that is quickly becoming one of the worst in recent memory. And guess what? They've still got 8 more games to go in the rest of the season, a season that could be the final one for Mike McCarthy, who's in the final year of his 5-year deal with the Cowboys as head coach, a coach who has led the Cowboys to 36 wins over the past 3 seasons combined, but nothing to show for it in terms of playoff success. And the injuries and everything in between, from the Packers playoff loss to now, has been one of the most disastrous 11 months that we've seen in franchise history. But oh, by the way, boys and girls, the conversation didn't stop after the game was over with. Micah Parsons, as we mentioned, who came back from an injury to be able to play in the game, was posed this very simple question by Jory Epstein of Yahoo Sports. Quote, "What do you tell people, Micah, who are wondering if Mike McCarthy will be your head coach next year?" I want you to listen to the 41 seconds that Micah Parsons gives on this answer, and you tell me whether or not Micah Parsons blasts his head coach, or what is he trying to actually say something else? Take a listen.
Mike's on the final year of his contract, so outside there's, of course, going to be questions. What's the sentiment inside the locker room, and what do you tell people who are wondering about whether McCarthy will be your coach next year?
You know, that's above my pay grade about if Mike is coaching again next year. But, you know, all coaching aside, coaching, you know, Mike can leave and go wherever he wants. But the guys I kind of feel bad for is guys like Zach Martin and guys who might be on their last year or on their way out, because that's who I wanted to hold the trophy for. You want to win games and do great things with those type of legends who put in more time and work than Mike McCarthy ever did. So those are the kind of guys that I have so much sympathy and hurt for.
You want to win games and do great things with those types of legends who put in more time and work than Mike McCarthy ever did. Damn, Micah. Mike McCarthy, who's won a Super Bowl in this league and has had a lot of playoff success throughout the course of his career, has, yes, not been able to bring that same success to Dallas. Now, let's think about what Mike is trying to say here. Obviously, for a guy in Zach Martin, for example, a long, illustrious career, a near decade-and-a-half career with the Dallas Cowboys, may be on his way out and moving toward retirement at the end of this year in a season for Martin that hasn't been nearly his best. The All-Pro, of course, who's been a stalwart on this offensive line, has seen plenty of players come and go, but this year especially, it has been terrible for this offensive line. Zach Martin, one of the many legends for this Cowboys organization that appears to be in his career not able to win a championship. And when you start thinking about the long line of terrific Cowboys in recent memory that have not been able to win a championship when it comes to Jason Witten or Des Bryant or Travis Frederick or Tony Romo or any number of players that you want to put on this list that includes guys like DeMarcus Ware and others, you can tell what Micah Parsons is actually trying to say here. He wants to win for those guys because Mike McCarthy can go somewhere else and try to revive another program, and he'll probably get another job somewhere else, no matter how you may feel about his offensive concepts and whether or not they work in the year 2024 and beyond. Mike McCarthy can find another job somewhere else, so he'll be fine. Micah Parsons is trying to say, I want to win for the guys that are here and maybe on their way out. Those are the guys that matters to me, and those are the men that I feel like I put in the kind of work and time with this organization that deserve to have a championship, and I feel bad for them. While a lot of folks feel like Micah Parsons blasted Mike McCarthy and the job that he's done or lack thereof for this team, this is more about the guys who will not be able to see the kind of success that the organization believes is their birthright and what they've built their reputation on over the past 35, 40 years, which is a championship organization designed to put their players in the best positions to succeed with the organization and facilities and structure to give them the platform to be able to do it, except there's one common denominator over the last 30 years specifically that has not allowed them to be in that successful position. And that man happens to be the owner, president, and general manager in Gerald Wayne Jones. You can blame him all you want to, as you and I do pretty much every single time you and I have a conversation, and rightfully so. But it's about the players who have been a part of this organization that will not have the opportunity to be able to win a championship. That is who Micah is speaking toward, and that is the thing that I want us to focus on here. Not the idea that Micah was trying to throw his head coach under the bus, even though if you listen to a lot of folks, they may take it the way that feels like he is doing, throwing his head coach under the bus. And if you take that position, I'm not going to blame you because he has to be accountable for his words that he says and the way that they're interpreted. The point being here, you cannot, as a leader on this football team, a self-declared leader on this team, put people in position to interpret your words one way when you meant them the other. You have to clarify, Micah, whether it's on your podcast or otherwise, what you actually meant to say, because you did more talking than you probably meant to do, and you created something that you probably didn't mean to create, and now you got a firestorm around your head coach that you didn't need to have because of the words that you chose to use after the football game. Right, wrong, or indifferent, Micah, this is on you, my guy, because you have to be accountable for the words that you say, how they're perceived by others who may interpret your words, because you are one of the ones that speak as a leader on this team, and your words will be parsed left and right, up and down, and through the media like crazy because you have a platform. You decide to talk. You are the one who feels like he has the pulse of this football team. So if you felt that way, stand on business and believe what you say and move forward that way, because if it's not what you meant to say, then you need to get out here and clarify. And I'm sure that you will on the podcast that you have. But don't get upset, Micah, when people interpret your words in one way or the other because they came out of your mouth. That's why you and I are having this conversation right now, because of the perception of his words and what he tried to say, and it not coming out exactly the way he probably meant it to. But that's why we're here, because I believe Micah was trying to speak to the frustration of not being able to help this team over the last several years deliver a championship for the guys that deserve it. And whether you assign that to Zach Martin, DeMarcus Ware, Jason Witten, Tony Romo, Dez Bryant, Travis Frederick, or any number of your favorite Cowboys who have not been able to win a championship, those are the guys that Micah is thinking of, with Zach Martin becoming the latest and most present example for us to speak of. But all of that pales into what Micah actually said. And if you listen to him, I think that's what he was trying to say here. It just didn't come out right. But for all those who interpret what Micah had to say, right, wrong, or indifferent, Micah left it up to interpretation, and he has to deal with the fallout that comes from that, whether it be from Rex Ryan or Damian Woody on ESPN, Stephen A. Smith, or any number of talking heads like me who have something to say about it, but also try to keep in mind the context in which Micah tried to say him in. That is why you have to think about what Micah said in the context in which he tried to say it in, because there's more that meets the eye than what he tried to say in the heat of the moment in a 5-minute presser after a game where he and his team got their tail whooped again. But for Micah, it's about the accountability of his words and ensuring that if he meant to say something, you clarify it, stand on it, and make sure that we understand what you meant, because otherwise, if you don't, which again, I believe that you will, then you got to deal with what comes with that. Just like this Cowboys football team has got to deal with what comes to it over the rest of these last 8 games of the season, which is a season that is destined to be one of the worst in quite some time. But hey, Jerry Jones gets his way, right? We're talking about the Cowboys. Whether they're good, they're bad, curtainless or not, this Cowboys team stays at the front of the conversation. And one last thing I'll say on this, whether it's Micah or any of these players that get on a podcast or a platform, don't blame them. This is the culture and climate that we live in today's media when it comes to the players having their own voice, which I don't necessarily mind. But when they talk and don't find a runway to stop their words, you can look to their owner, president, and general manager, who tends to do the same thing from time to time, not finding a way to put on the brakes. It says too much, and next thing you know, he's got things that are said about him that he may not necessarily have meant to have said in the way that they're interpreted. But here we are once again. The Cowboys are in the news, in the headlines, because that's what they do. And unfortunately, they're doing that better than they win football games or put a roster together. That's why they are where they are right now. You can find me on X at Kevin Gray Sports. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the Gray Area here on YouTube with Kevin Gray Sports. And you can also catch me on DLLS Sports 5 times a week talking about the Mavericks and the Cowboys. Until next time, I'll talk to you later. Peace.